This video is sponsored by G Fuel. Go to them for any of your energy drink needs. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Battle Frontier Series 10 Challenge presented by G Fuel. I am Necra, joined by Justin Karras, and we already took you through round of 32, and now we're back for the round of 16 match. We're going to be bringing you marcofiero versus Sergio, and oh my gosh, Justin, I'm expecting this one to be a good one, especially when we take a look at Marco's team.
Yeah, Spain versus Italy, always a classic. So two of the strongest regions in the world right now. If you're looking at these teams, I know you got a little bit excited when you saw the restricted on Marco's side.
Yeah.
So one of us got a little bit less excited. We had to go through 2019 Sun Series, so not the biggest fan of Lunala, but very excited to see it, played in this new format. Maybe it can have a little bit of a redemption arc. Again, kind of a very defensive. My bad. Sorry, a trick room style build that we were used to seeing in the Moon series. Thrown around to Oceania Internets in 2019. I know that there was a Lunala Stag Attack Mirror, I think, ended up being in the
Literally the
finals of
bane of
that.
my existence.
Yeah, ended up being quite a slow match, but still, that's kind of what we're hoping for. Hey, you guys wanted Dynamax removed. You want these slow
I
games. This
know.
is what you get.
Not complaining at all given the action that we've seen from Series 10 so far. But yes, Marco is an incredibly accomplished player. You've got OCIC 2020 champion with a very similar team. You got the VR Spring Series champ. And of course, also I can't even pronounce it because I don't know uh, any other language other than English, but the Latam champ as well. But what it really sticks out to me on this particular team is that you have Zarina, you also have Ditto, two Pokemon that I feel like are incredibly underused in Dynamax formats. Zarina saw a lot of play in the earlier series of VGC, especially knowing that it has the ability of Queenly Majesty, which protects your team from opposing uh, status moves or prankster moves. And you also have Ditto. And what's better than one restricted if you can have two, Justin?
Yeah, what's crazy to me is, yeah, man, Queenly Majesty has got to be the most pretentiously nicknamed Pokemon ability ever. It's like it just stops priority moves, but and Serena doesn't even have the base stats to don a name. But anyway, Serena is a cool Pokemon. Mono Grass actually pretty decent typing, and excellent move pool. It gets access to stuff like Feint and I think it's Trop Kick, which is a attack lowering move that does pretty significant damage to stuff like Groudon, Kyogre. As long as you can avoid taking, strong fire type attacks or flying type attacks, Serena has, pretty decent stats where it can stick around on the field well. And blocking stuff like Fake Out is extremely key. Not that Lunala is exactly worried about that, but Stack Attacka wanting to go for Trick Room, the threat of, Queenly Majesty just being switched in, preventing a Fake Out
Mm-hmm.
is very big. Ditto, which might be transforming into the opponent's restricted. You might want to be able to block Fake Out with that as well. I'm pretty sure that Serena gets Helping Hand, so I think that that's something that it also has access to. Again, trying to shake the rust off of my brain here, but Tapu Fini finally being introduced into one of our stream matches, here to protect status moves. An interesting choice. Probably there to protect from more of the sleep status than stuff like burn. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like Marco's team is pretty specially based rather than physically. If anything, it's probably hinging on the Lunala, Incineroar as a pivot. But Lunala and Incineroar are a great combination. They ended up being, I think they were the world champions in 2019. They were on the world champion team. I might be wrong about that. It was Lunala Groudon that ended up winning?
Yeah, I think it was something like that. My memory does evade me at this particular point in time, but our players are getting ready. So let's go ahead and hop over to Sergio's card really, really fast before we get a chance to hop into this match. Also, a incredibly accomplished player, was also two times top 32 in the Desafio Latam uh, competition and also top 32 in the VR Spring Series as well. So definitely playing in a lot of the same tournaments as Marco. And I feel like they both have a pretty good understanding of how each other kind of roles as a player. But we are seeing some very similar Pokemon to actually our game one matchup where we've got the Zashi and we've got the Nihiligo. We also have the Regieleki and the Rillaboom, and of course Incineroar, because Incineroar feels super busted in this particular format. But it's the Amoonguss as well that I feel like could play a pretty key role in this matchup, especially if you can get it in without the threat of that Tapu Fini on the other side on Marco's board, and just make sure that you can get off some of those spores.
I think that the very interesting thing about this Amoonguss in this matchup is that, Amoonguss kind of relegated to a lesser role when you have a lot of spread damage from the opponent. And if you take a look at Marco's team, there's not much that's going to be doing spread target damage. In fact, I don't even know that they have spread moves on their team. So avoiding a target from the Lunala is pretty much the win condition from that Amoonguss there. I think that it's probably centered around setting up the Zacian, Zacian, and is it Zacian? Zacian? I might be saying it crazy. I hope people don't get on me for that. But
Potato,
Amoonguss,
potato.
potato. Amoonguss going to be able to protect that Zacian so that it can dish out some damage to the opposing threats. I feel like it matches up great here against Sergio's team, against Marco's team, but I do feel like speed control is going to be an extremely important
Hmm.
factor. Lunala, a little bit faster for something that would operate under Trick Room mode, but it's always good to have the hybrid stuff where you can, switch the Trick Room to your advantage or against your opponent by reversing it when you need to. That's kind of always been a key strategy in VGC, is like maybe a late game Trick Room with a fast Pokemon in the back when it runs out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Trick Room is going to be incredibly influential in this matchup. And just a big heads up to everybody that is tuning in for this particular match. We don't have game audio, unfortunately. Sometimes you just run into some of those issues when we are doing it through this type of format. But we obviously very much appreciate you being here, and we'll try to keep you up to date on everything that is happening in game. Maybe we'll even sing a little music ourselves. No, we shouldn't do that.
We could bust out
Justin's
on this song. Honestly, I
Justin,
was the
stop me
lead in
now.
2 musicals in high school. I am ready. I still have the chops. I can belt, baby.
Oh, maybe we got it fixed. It looks like we might have gotten it fixed. So let's get some game audio for everybody.
Yeah.
We'll spare you. We'll
Yeah.
spare you the Justin Necra sing along.
As soon as I said I could sing, she was like, "Get the game audio, quick, put it on there, please." So we're gonna go into this first game. Again, I feel like these teams match up pretty well in Sergio's favor. I think that Amoonguss is going to be a huge factor. I'd like to see how the Lunella ends up being played more towards the late game is what I would expect, but there's still always the possibility that the Ditto is the late game sweeper.
Yeah, well, it looks like we have right now from Sergio's side of the field that we will have the Zacian and the Incineroar, and on Marco's side of the field, we get a chance to see that Lunala in action very, very early alongside Marco's Incineroar.
Yeah, Intimidate's going to be dropped right away. We are going to see that Zacian kind of cancels that out. And soon we're going to go for the Intimidate on Marco's side. Sergio getting the Zacian out into the field right away. Both players bringing their restricteds, kind of puffing out their chests a little bit. The Trick Room threat is very huge from Marco. Speed control could be, very much an advantage, especially if Incineroar is able to get a parting shut off and go right into Stack Attacker. Stack Attacker could be doing sizable chunks of damage with Gyro Ball to the Zacian, and then going for stuff like, I think it has Rock Slide. That's probably the only spread move that they're going to be able to go for. So that's something that the Amoonguss would be threatened by. I'm interested to see if Sergio ended up bringing it this game.
Oh, it looks like Sergio did bring the Amoonguss. You absolutely called it. That Amoonguss going to be switching out for the Zacian that we saw on Sergio's side of the field. And also Nihilego coming in here. It's just a full swap of Pokemon on Sergio's side of the field. Looks like we're gonna have a meteor beam coming through, and this is really interesting coming in from the Lunala because it is actually holding a power herb, so it will be able to be completely charged up for this particular time. And the meteor beam going to be coming out right into the Nihilego. Ooh, takes it to about 50% as Incineroar does go for the parting shot. Would have been interesting to see that Flare Blitz come out, but I kind of appreciate that Marco is playing this to be able to pivot around and maybe get something else in the Incineroar slot.
Yeah, and Neoligo being able to tank that pretty well for such a powerful move. In the words of my old dear friend Tommy Coolin, Neoligo has special crest bulk, which is very important. And many older VHC players probably know that. Cresselia not seeing too much usage nowadays, but Ditto going to be coming out here. It's crazy that they gave Lunala a way to knock out Incineroar. I just thought about that. That's kind of insane. I wonder if Assault Vest variants can actually survive that attack. Lunala having a very high special attack stat. Going for an offensive move right off the bat, the Power Herb immediately coming into play that Lunala no longer has an item. So there's no type of, threat there from it being something, damage boosting. But I feel like the positioning here is pretty favorable for Marco still.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we are going to see the rage powder come out from Sergio, so it will be able to take the attention away from any attacks. But the sludge bomb from the Nihiligo is going to be able to do a sizable amount of damage to that. But as you can see, and also Marco knows because of the transformation from that Ditto, we are going to see Nihiligo go for a substitute, which is a move that we're seeing a pretty increased usage with. But Moongeist Beam also comes out. It's going to do a ton of damage to that Amoonguss, but that Amoonguss is still gonna hang on.
Moonguy's Beam, honestly, one of the best like just offensive spread like single target moves in possibly in the game because I feel like it's like Lunala is a Pokemon that can pretty much just run Moongeist Beam, even though
Mhm.
deep Moon Pool to support it offensively. Ditto going to be switching out there, going to go into the Stack Attacka. Not much on the field from Sergio's side that can actually threaten the Stack Attacka. So I really like that switch coming out from Marco. But Incineroar are going to be coming out, dropping the Intimidate. Excellent timing too, because going to get that Intimidate right there into the Stack Attacka at -1. Stack Attack a little bit less threatening, but there is now still the threat of Trick Room. Nearly gonna go for the protect and possibly evade any damage coming out here.
Yeah, I think Protect is really great, especially because we talked about Zacian being able to cycle through substitutes, protects, and really keeping itself safe. But Moongeist Beam once again coming out from the Lunala, still going to be able to do a sizable chunk to that Incineroar, even though it's not very effective. But that Stack Attack of being in here, if you're Marco, threatening the ability to set Trick Room on 2 different Pokemon, and I think that's huge because now Sergio has to play this mind game of which is it? Who's gonna set the Trick Room? And which Pokemon is really gonna be trying to do more of the damage?
I'd love to see a double target here into the Lunala from Sergio. I know that there's probably a threat of a switch, but if you can get the Lunala off of the field right away, that's huge. I know you'd probably be risking a little bit of damage from the Rock Slide, but behind a substitute, you're not worried about losing your Lunala, or you're not worried about losing your Neoligo. And Incineroar did just drop an Intimidate. It won't go down to a Rock Slide. So we see the Fake Out attack the Stack Attacka.
Yeah, and then Nihiligo popping out from his substitute just to go for a quick attack into the Lunala, but it wasn't a double target. So Lunala is still going to be able to go for another Moongeist Beam here. Let's see what it decided to target down, and it does look like it's going to be that substitute on the Nihiligo, which should be able to pop it. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand there from Sergio. You didn't want to let Marco get a free Trick Room up. Again, I feel like Lunala was definitely a huge threat that you'd want to get off the field, but maybe there's even the risk that the Lunala wouldn't have gone down to the Dark move. I don't know if that calc, depending on how bulky the Lunala actually is. Um, but Incineroar taking a lot of damage from the Moongeist Beam. Not an Assault Vest variant. There's still a chance that it can go for a parting shot, get a second, a stat drop down into the Stack Attack, get a little bit more favorable positioning, maybe possibly go back into Amoonguss. With Regenerator, it probably has around 40% HP right now. Neoligo, and definitely being afraid of getting knocked out here. We're not going to see that right away. We're going to see a Wide Guard coming out from Lunala.
Yeah, I think that that's pretty interesting just because, wide guard is definitely something that you can really use to be able to make sure that you're not going to get hit by those spread moves. But yeah, let's get a chance to see what's going to happen here as we do see Incineroar switching out once again, just to be able to have that rotating door of Pokemon, and Sergio gets a chance to bring in something else in its place.
Yeah, probably going to end up going back into the Zacian if I would guess. Not exactly threatened too much by anything from their field, but actually going to go into the Amoonguss. There's not, there's a threat of a Rock Slide, but it's probably going to be minus. It's either -1 or -2 right now. Definitely gonna get the knockout on the Neoligo, but actually misses it instead, only getting a little bit of damage down into that Amoonguss, and that Life Orb kind of supplementing the stat drops, still doing a hefty amount of damage.
Yeah, I think that Stakataka, though, is pretty safe to be able to go for another rock slide here if it really wants to. Obviously, Lunala still has a hefty amount of HP left, should be able to go for another Moongeist Beam as well. But I also understand maybe the threat of an incoming spread type attack that you might want to try to use the wide guard for. But I also really respect maybe setting up the trick room here. Once again, Sergio has to play this mind game of which Pokemon is going to go for that trick room. And it looks like Sergio is just going to go ahead and set up to try to drop that Stack Attacker's attack even further with getting that Incineroar back in and using that Intimidate.
Yeah, you can scare me, but you can't damage me. That's kind of what Marco's saying. Is Stakataka just sitting there kind of steadfast at -3, but Power Gem going to go right into that Lunala. Not enough to take it out, and the Nihiligo, making its salute there, sacrificing its own life to deal a little bit of damage. Rock Slide going to come out now, going into that Incineroar, even at -3, still doing so much damage. Life
Ooh.
Orb, Stakataka. Wow, what a powerful Pokemon.
Yeah, and Lunala's gonna be able to get the Trick Room up here, so that Stakataka is gonna be able to do even more damage. Just being able to move first, I think, just gives Marco a ton of pressure when it comes down to just being able to get off damage with that Stakataka. And of course, Lunala is not one of the fastest Pokemon in the format either, so it's able to make use of the Trick Room as well. But I am super interested to see, how Sergio is going to try to adapt to this. I think bringing in Zacian is one great way to do it.
Yeah, I don't really feel like Zacian's too scared of getting, too much damage down into it. There's a chance the Rock Slide can miss so that the Incineroar is still there, but Amoonguss probably going to be the next switch in here. Stack Attack is still having the speed advantage. There is also the risk of Rock Slide flinches, and that's something that I didn't introduce early, but we now kind of have to be more afraid of that now that Dynamax isn't here to save our skins. I like that aspect about Dynamax, being that it didn't, let you get flinched, but that's now something that people can do. Rock Slide and Bray is once again in VGC format.
Hmm. Yeah, I think removing Dynamax obviously does put a layer of difficulty into the game that a lot of people are potentially still adjusting to. We saw a lot of new players get into VGC when Dynamax was the biggest mechanic on the field. And so seeing the adjustments take place in real time, I think is really special. And also, Sergio and Marco are incredibly accomplished when it comes to playing in no Dynamax formats. So I love getting a chance to see their particular perspectives on how we should be able to play this out.
Moonguy's Beam going to be coming out here from Lunala, going to be targeting possibly that Zacian, going to do a massive amount of damage
Wow.
because of the critical hit. That's going to be a key crit. Zacian unable to use Substitute because of that critical hit. And now there is an Amoonguss and a Zacian on the field, but we are about around the last turn of Trick Room. I feel like I think it expires this turn. So Stakataka possibly going to want to switch out. I think that if Lunala is able to get the KO on that Amoonguss, then Ditto might be the last thing that needs to be brought in for Marco to end up sealing this game off. But Sergio still has options. Going to go for the Protect on the Zacian, just save whatever damage he can from that restricted.
Mhm. I think that's really, really smart from Sergio, but also Mungus in the Trick Room is going to be able to go for a very fast Spore, putting that Stack Attack asleep, and I feel like that could really turn the tides of this game, depending on how much this Moongeist beam from this Lunala is actually going to do to this Amoonguss. We're going to get a chance to see the damage come through. Amoonguss is still able to hang on.
That was an interesting turn of events. I'm guessing that the Trick Room actually didn't expire this turn, so most likely the next turn. If I'm wrong again, then I'll be on my way. And it was nice commentating with you, Rosemary. But I think that towards this next turn, Lunala just not going in the last few turns, not going for any type of defensive play, just ripping off attacks is huge. But now Amoonguss showing what a menace it is under Trick Room and has been since 2012. So
Yeah, especially because Marco decided to leave the Tapu Fini at home. You don't necessarily have the misty terrain anymore to be able to protect yourself from these spores. And oh my goodness, that Stakataka, especially being asleep, is just going to go down here. And you really kind of have to consider what to bring into this last slot. But I feel like you're okay with Stakataka being removed from the field because if you bring Ditto back into its Pokeball, it is able to use its imposter ability again onto whatever Pokemon it is in front of on the field. And this is the perfect slot for that Ditto to come into to be able to transform into that Zacian on Sergio's side.
all right, I was wrong. So it was nice commentating with you, Rosemary. So since this is now the last turn of Trick Room, and if I can come to forgive myself for this, Lunala being asleep is huge because there's no real threat for the Zacian. You only have to be Zacian. You only have to be worried about the Amoonguss getting the target down. Lunala could just be staying asleep. It has already burned, I think, one turn of sleep. So again, it's just going to be coming down to who can maintain the amount of damage output they need. Ditto transforming into Zacian is huge. So,
Mhm.
we need to be able to see if it can get all the momentum it needs. I believe it's a Choice Scarf variant, so that could be really, really big down the stretch.
Yeah, Ditto is holding that choice scarf, so I think that's going to really play a role here in this particular matchup, especially if it's Zacian versus Zacian. But we are going to see Ditto go for the protect here, and I think that's really smart from Marco just to be able to wait out the trick room, especially losing that stack Attacka. You don't want to have the Amoonguss have too much pressure, but you're kind of playing a 50-50 here. Zacian is going to be able to go for the Behemoth Blade on Sergio's side, and of course, it's going to go right into the Incineroar that Marco switched in. It's not going to be very effective just because of the typing, which means that Incineroar is going to be able to hang on. But Amoonguss right now, that was really what Sergio, that's really what Marco needed in this moment, was to be able to wait out the trick room and make sure that Amoonguss was going to be one of the slowest Pokemon on the field.
Yeah, Marco have been playing excellently when it comes to position, and as we're seeing with Dynamax, this is something. This is kind of that skill that has been shining through. A lot of people wanted to return to a format like that, and I understand. So Lunala being asleep here in the back, kind of really acting as a fodder switch for better board position. You get another switch in with the Incineroar, especially if you can take out the Amoonguss this turn. That could be
Mhm.
huge because the Zacian would be stuck on the field on Sergio's side with low HP and intimidated attack, so pretty much mitigated useless.
Ooh, Incineroar actually gets a chance to eat its Pinch Berry, which is really going to help, or Citrus Berry, excuse me. Still a berry nonetheless, or an almond. I still think they look like almonds and they crunch like almonds. I don't know.
Probably.
But
I'm sure they're
but
very taught.
yeah, but we will see the Incineroar get a chance to get the knockout onto the Zacian, which was already sitting at pretty low HP. But Spore comes out again from the Amoonguss, going to be able to put the Incineroar to sleep. So Marco's Pokemon just having a little bit of a nap here on the field.
Yeah, getting off all these spores very huge, kind of showing why that move has been nerfed so many times. And by nerfed, it's funny that they changed all the grass type mechanics instead of just the actual move sport. Lower the accuracy, maybe it'll be better. I've always liked Amoonguss as a Pokemon. Being able to get that guaranteed turn of sleep, especially under Trick Room, is huge. And just one of the best utility Pokemon to really ever exist. Arguably, the greatest, if not for Incineroar. We're going to see Lunala actually end up staying asleep, and the Incineroar on Sergio's side is going to go for a Snarl, getting the knockout on that Lunala.
Yeah, I think that Snarl is actually really huge because it was just enough chip damage to be able to remove the Lunala from the field. So the fact that Lunala didn't get a chance to wake up here, it's not going to be able to get off another attack. But Clear Smog now, ooh, very interesting move to see on an Amoonguss. We don't get a chance to see that super often, I feel like. But Ditto has to come back in here for Marco, and I don't know if you really want to be uh, transforming into an Incineroar. I guess it's not bad. We've got 3 cats on the field now. I can't complain about this.
Yeah, Zacian's off the field. Honestly, it's not the worst thing to have Incineroar because you have great defensive typing. You gotta drop another
Mhm.
Intimidate into that Incineroar. You can knock out the Amoonguss, if not this turn, then the next turn. So Incineroar being asleep also on Marco's side kind of incentivizes bringing in the Ditto to get another Incineroar. If not one, why not two? And I think Sergio was it Sergio that forfeited there? Yeah. So Sergio kind
Mhm.
of recognized that that was kind of a closing win condition for Marco. Definitely well played. I mentioned earlier before the match started that Ditto is an extremely difficult Pokemon to use. And it's because it actually transforms into the slot side that you are maneuvering in. So you
Mhm.
have to kind of consider that, especially in the end game. And sometimes that just works out favorably. Sometimes you have to really plan for stuff like that. And in, high stakes matches, deep into large tournaments, top 16 here, that type of play was definitely intentional, and I could just feel it emanating. I feel like Marco is definitely on a roll here. Going into game two, I felt like this team matched up poorly against Sergio's, but now I'm completely questioning my initial analysis.
Yeah, I have to kind of question it too, just because, as you mentioned, Ditto is such a high skill floor Pokemon to be able to use in a format like this, especially knowing that you have to maneuver around. You're only transforming one of the Pokemon on the field, but you also have multiple transformations that you can make, especially if you're pivoting that Ditto in and out. And as we saw from Marco's side of the field, he did such a fantastic job of maneuvering that Ditto around in order to actually transform into the exact right Pokemon that he needed at any given moment in time. So I really appreciate that we got a chance to see that skill be put out here. But Sergio as well, I think, can make some really nice adaptations. Played a pretty defensive game when you take a look at how game number one played out. But I think that, like, especially if you have, the a little bit more offensive pressure, maybe you bring in the Rillaboom if you expect a terrain war to come out or something like that. That might be something really interesting to consider as well.
Yeah, I think that it was really cool to show that checkmate into the Incineroar slot with Ditto.
Mhm.
An adjustment that I really like to see from Sergio is maybe just firing off spores from the beginning of the game. I feel like that was a huge momentum swing in their favor, but just keeping the Ditto in back for Marco was really smart. It ended up not taking any spores and was always in position to threaten a knockout on that Amoonguss. So very well played there from Marco. Again, I think that another adjustment too is that if you can avoid that situation where you get critical hit by Moongeist Beam or just taking too much damage from the Lunala, and your restricted slot, then getting a substitute off could be huge. And like had that substitute gotten off, Sergio might have been able to clean that game up. So I know I questioned my initial analysis, but I'm blaming RNG. So going into this new game, we are going to see Lunala and Incineroar once again coming out from Marco, but Neoligo going to start things off here for Sergio.
I kind of like that because if you take a look at what that Nihiligo is actually running, you do have a Life Orb actually instead of a Power Herb that we usually get a chance to see on a Nihiligo going for something like a Meteor Beam. So in fact, this particular Nihiligo doesn't actually have Meteor Beam as a part of its moveset, but you're still pressuring in a ton of damage, I feel like, with that. Or you can kind of predict a switch if you really, really need to on Sergio's side of the field.
Yeah, and I do think that Nihiligo definitely matches up better as a lead Pokemon, but especially because Lunala doesn't have a Psychic type move. But Incineroar offering pressure into that Nihiligo, I feel like Marco's going to be able to do what they want turn one more easily.
Hmm. We are going to see a pivot come through here from Sergio where it is that Zacian that is going to be coming in, but Power Gem is going to be going right into the Incineroar. Look how much damage it does! Incineroar, though, on Marco's side of the field, will be taken down to a small sliver of HP, but with that Citrus Berry, will be able to heal up just a little bit. But Lunala now going for the Meteor Beam here. Is this gonna be enough? I think, with the Power Herb, obviously, you're gonna be able to get this Meteor Beam off for turn number 1, but what did Marco target? Let's go ahead and find out as that Meteor Beam does come out from that Lunala. It's going to go right into the Zacian that switched in. It's gonna not do very much, though, and I think that's a great opportunity for Sergio to really get the ball rolling here.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit odd for Marco to actually let the Incineroar take that much damage from the Nihiligo, but I definitely understand why getting the parting shot off gives you much more favorable positioning. Ditto going to be coming in here instead into that slot. I don't feel like Nihiligo in general offers that much pressure against stuff like Zacian, but I guess in the mirror, Nihiligo isn't too bad because you're doing tons of damage to the opposing Nihiligo. Interesting. All right, so I'm trying to understand this. I feel like Lunala, this might be a bait where Lunala is just going to
Mhm.
try and maybe go off for like a Trick Room or something, or you're going to pivot right back out into the Incineroar. There's not really much that Marco has on the field available to pressure the Zacian with damage outside of maybe Moongeist Beam. So utilizing that pressure, maybe calling a Protect here, it's risky because Sergio can go for a substitute. So again, it's really going to come down to how they reset the position and what Sergio goes for here.
Yeah, let's get a chance to see what is going to happen on the other side of the field. But it was a little bit of a bait and switch coming out from Marco, just getting that Ditto into position so that Incineroar could come right back in. But did Sergio call it? The Intimidate is obviously very important to be able to lower the attack of the Zacian on Sergio's side of the field. But Nihiligo just going to swap out here. Actually, going to be bringing in the Amoonguss instead. So I think this is a great pivot from Marco, especially if you're able to keep that Incineroar alive. Maybe to be able to pressure down the Amoonguss, but it's a substitute coming out from the Zacian. And where is this Moongeist Beam going to go? Is it going to be able to do enough damage into this
Ooh,
Amoonguss? And
huge play
wow,
from Sergio.
huge, huge, huge.
Yeah, because now the Zacian's in perfect positioning with even the threat of like a Rage Powder. I even think that this first turn you can maybe go for something like a double protect because you have fake out pressure, or at least protecting the Zacian. That's the cool thing about substitute, in my opinion, isn't that you are protecting yourself from an attack. You are drawing attention to yourself because you have a threatening Pokemon where you don't want to leave the substitute up. So there's protect becomes even more powerful. We are going to see the switch over into Tapu Fini. Not exactly the most threatening Pokemon offensively, but going to bring the Misty Terrain to the field.
Yeah, and I think that Misty Terrain is so, so nice to have, especially knowing how much work Sergio Zamungus was able to put in with that spore. So Misty Terrain obviously going to be able to offset that, and Sergio really recognizes, hey, you know what? Maybe this is not going to be the best place for me to be in. But Zacian going for the Sacred Sword right into that Tapu Fini, not going to be super effective here. So that's pretty good, I feel like, for Marco to be able to get that Tapu Fini in pretty scot-free here as another Moongeist Beam gonna come out from this Lunala, and it's gonna go right into the substitute this time on the Zacian, and it's enough to be able to make it fade.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? That Sacred Sword going into the Tapu Fini immediately reminded me, like, wow, we haven't really seen any like crazy call outs yet. There hasn't
Mhm.
been like a hard read, maybe like a Behemoth Blade into that Incineroar slot would have been a lot crazier. Tapu Fini going to come in and tank that Sacred Sword much more effectively. And it's crazy because I feel like in formats where you have more defensive pivoting and switching, you can kind of overextend like that a little bit more safely. Whereas, you know, in a Dynamax format, you're a little bit more scared of just losing your win condition in one turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking like Lunala's gonna go for another Moongeist Beam here, and I think it's really important for Marco to really be able to get a knockout. We haven't seen a whole lot of offensive pressure really come out from either side of the field here, but Sergio is going to go for a Flare Blitz into Lunala. Look how little damage that actually does. Maybe trying to just get a read or
Mhm.
something, maybe expecting that the Lunala wasn't going to stay in.
Yeah, that was the multi-scale, whatever the ability that Lunala has, kind of playing into a shadow
Yeah, the
shield,
Shadow Shield.
playing into effect there. I always just thought of it as multi-scale because it's the same exact ability. I don't understand why they did two of the same. Um, But, you know, on Sergio's side, it's feeling like the Incineroar not having, you know, a single target strong dark move is kind of playing a big factor into how the Lunala operates on
Hmm.
Marco's side. We've seen Marco kind of use Lunala very aggressively, just throwing out tons of Moongeist beams. But honestly, the game as it goes on longer, that option runs out because the Moongeist beam having low power points is actually very effective and it not being used like throughout the game. You can't just spam it; you'll run out.
Yeah, we actually saw Marco get into a little bit of a predicament with that. I was gonna actually bring that up that Marco only had like 4 power points left, and I was like, yeah, you can't just kind of liberally use the Moongeist Beam anymore because if you run out, then you're losing a ton of offensive pressure. But I really like that we're seeing a parting shot come out from Sergio's side of the field. That Incineroar is going to be able to drop the special attack of this Lunala, which is going to make it just a little bit less scary. But the Amoonguss is still going to be on the field here. It obviously can't go for spores at this particular moment because of the misty terrain, but it still has the ability to go for a Rage Powder here, especially if this Nihilego is going to be able to come back in. You don't want that Nihilego taking too much damage.
Yeah, and Lunala, not really. Uh, you know, now back to full HP. Was that did he heal pulse into himself?
Mhm.
That was just excellent play from Marco. That's exactly what I thought happened. But Sergio kind of having, you know, taking the positional advantage here. Ditto acted kind of as a defensive switch in, going to be able to switch into, you know, Nihilego, not having too much coverage for itself. Um, but Lunala still, once again, just, you know, going to be able to go for these Moongeist beams kind of willy nilly until, again, as we said, they run out. The longer this game runs out, there's a clock. So Rage Powder going to be coming out from Amoonguss, and Sludge Bomb going to be targeting that Ditto, not doing very much damage at all.
Yeah, that's not going to be doing a ton of damage. And I think that's really great for Marco to be able to continue to use that Ditto as that defensive pivot and switch. But Moongeist Beam into this already super, super low Moongeist is going to be enough to knock it out. And that's great because Misty Terrain is going to be expiring soon. And now the threat of the sport is completely off the field, Tapu Fini has done its job. And that is the most important thing that Marco was really looking at as an adjustment for this game number two.
Yeah, now Zacian comes in with, you know, an attack boost, threatening pretty much everything on the field. That Ditto isn't, you know, because it transformed into that Neoligo, isn't going to be able to do too much damage to the Zacian. I feel like Sergio has great offensive pressure here, but they're going to have to get their turn right. If they lose their Neoligo to something, you know, a little bit silly, they're going to run out of, you know, they're not going to have too many answers for that Tapu Fini, especially with Zacian at low health. There's too much risk that in the end game, the Zacian's gone and you won't be able to take out the Tapu Fini.
Mhm. Yeah, that type of Freeney, especially with the ability to just kind of be able to go for the like nature's madness. I feel like that's such an interesting tech on Tapu Fini because typically what we see is like Combine variant where you're able to boost up your special defenses and just make sure that that Tapu Fini can really sit well for the end game. But Nitro's Madness, especially with a really full HP Pokemon, that's just cutting it down in half. And I think that is something that Marco could really use to his particular advantage in this game.
With the Lunala at lower special attack, I'm surprised that Sergio elected to go for a substitute with Zacian. I feel like they may have been able to actually survive a Moongeist Beam and get some sizable damage off,
Mm.
possibly even knock out the Ditto. Right now, it feels like in the past 2 games, Zacian hasn't really been damaging anything. It's just been trying to get into a good position with a substitute. And I feel like that's just really hurting Sergio. So I'd like to see a little bit more, aggression coming out of that dog, less bark, more bite. And Cineroar are going to be coming back out onto the field here from Marco. I think that saving the Ditto again, once again as that checkmate option.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of 4D chess playing around here in this particular game when you take a look at how these players are pivoting around and making sure that they have the right Pokemon in the right slots. But Sergio, using this opportunity now to go for a huge Behemoth Blade into the Lunala, it's not going to be enough to knock it out, but it's still going to be able to sit pretty nicely on the field because this Power Gem is going to be enough. Lunala goes down here and Marco has no longer the ability to go for those Moongeist beams, and Nihiligo is going to be able to get that Beast Boost off.
And I
But if,
said, I was like, Sergio really has to get this turn right. And that
yeah.
was the most correct they could have gotten this turn. They got their Neoligo perfectly in position now with the Moongeist Beam. The only problem to get the knockout on the Lunala, the only problem, though, is now that Ditto is coming in with pretty much almost full health as a Zacian with the attack boosts as well. Remember, you copy the stat boosts. So that's going to be a very dangerous thing. Marco kind of has a very threatening option here, especially with all of Sergio's Pokemon at such low health. I don't know how they're going to be able to turn this around exactly. It's going to require some pivoting. What do you think, Rose?
I agree with that. But I kind of also wonder whether or not Sergio actually has time to pivot. I think that especially in this position when you've got Marco's Ditto that is going to be at basically full HP and also a Zacian on the field, you have two restricteds that you're playing around with. And that is so much offensive pressure, especially given how low the Zacian is on Sergio's side of the field, and as well as this Nihiligo. You've got Incineroar in right at the right time. And I think Marco has a really great way of wrapping up this game, especially if Sergio doesn't get these reads right.
Yeah, Marco's played in a lot of really high pressure situations and has come out on top. So their experience really showing through here. We're gonna get a protect drawn out here from the Nihiligo. The Zacian actually goes to the Sacred Sword. That was a very bold play from Sergio. And again, that seems like a very perfect turn back to back.
Mhm.
Extremely well played from with your back against the wall. So excellent stuff there from Sergio. Now with the offensive pressure to be able to knock out that Tapu Fini. Now again, this is a open information tournament, so we know that that Tapu Fini doesn't have protect, and I believe that both Zacian and Neoligo have the ability to knock out that Tapu Fini. The problem is you'd end up losing one of them to the Zacian on Marco's side.
Yeah, and Sergio still has a third Pokemon in the back. So, like I was saying before, Sergio had to get these reads right, and he absolutely did. And so now Sergio is looking like it's in much better position than they were before. But Sacred Sword comes out here. It will be enough to pick up the Nihiligo. So Nihiligo now not going to be able to put on that much pressure onto this Tapu Fini. But Zacian is going to go for a Behemoth Blade on Sergio's side of the field. And depending on what this targets down, it's going to be that Tapu Fini. Knowing that it doesn't have the Protect is going to bring it down to pretty low health.
Moonblast coming out from Tapu Fini. Very weak Pokemon. Is it going to get the knockout? It doesn't. And that's where the Tapu
Wow.
Fini being a supportive style is not going to end up helping Marco, but hurting. And now the Incineroar coming in here. This is extremely dangerous because knowing that the Zacian could possibly survive another Moonblast from this Tapu Fini, you could even just, you could target the Zacian here on Sergio's side, possibly get the KO. I'm guessing that's actually going to decide whether or not this game ends. Ditto, again, doesn't have the same HP set as Zacian, so if Fake Out targets the Zacian, and Zacian on Sergio's side gets the knockout with Behemoth Blade, that could end up being the game.
Yeah, this was really, really well played by Sergio, especially knowing that that Zacian is going to be most of that pressure. Behemoth Blade is definitely going to be enough to knock out that Tapu Fini on Marco's side of the field. And in this position, I'm nervous for Marco. I think that Sergio made some incredible adjustments and incredible reads in this particular game to be able to come back from that back against the wall type of pressure that was put onto Sergio. But it's not over yet. Zacian is still very low on Sergio's side of the field, but this Incineroar being able to go for the fake out and now a Flare Blitz. I'm worried, but Sacred Sword comes out first.
Gonna get the knockout on the
Yeah, it
Incineroar.
is.
Whew. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Here we're going into this last turn. It's really all going to
Yeah.
come down whether the Behemoth Blade can get the knockout. Sergio going to go for it. Is Zacian strong enough to take out the Ditto, the imposter? And it's not.
It's
not. That was really clutch. Excellent survival there coming out from Marco's Ditto.
And this is so important because Ditto has the choice card.
Wow.
It's going to be able to move first.
That's going to be the game. Marco's going to end up taking the set.
Gosh. Yeah, especially with Zacian is such low HP. Marco played that beautifully. Sergio almost able to make the comeback in this set after two incredibly good reads back to back. But man, Marco putting on an expert clinic for everybody about what a no Dynamax tournament looks like and how to play around with Ditto. Holy cow, Justin.
Yeah, again, once again, showing that is the checkmate option, put it into perfect position. I got a little bit worried when the Tapu Fini was unable to knock out the Zacian on Sergio's side.
Yeah, that moon blasted like nothing.
But the Zacian on Marco's side was able to tank that last Behemoth Blade. A couple of the attack drops coming into play there. I think a big thing really was that the Sacred Sword didn't. It did actually clean up the Incineroar on Sergio's side. As we saw in the last set that we watched, some of the Incineroars aren't exactly trained as defensively. So there's going to be differences like that really shine through. Another thing too that I think really played a key factor was the Zacian came in and copied the attack boosts, but didn't get attack dropped the way that Sergio's did. So the Zacian on Zacian gameplay at the end was very key. And again, just excellent use of Ditto. I know it's a very hard Pokemon to use, and Marco used it brilliantly.
Yeah, wow. Like I said, this is just such an expert clinic on how to use a very difficult Pokemon. Like Ditto wasn't super valued in previous tournament formats just because of the fact that it's pretty difficult to pilot, and also in a Dynamax format, you could just get one shot by a max move. But in a format where you're playing a lot more defensively, that Ditto can be such a huge key factor, especially if you're able to get it into the right position at the right time to be able to copy the Pokemon that's in front of it. And I think Marco, beautifully done in both games, was able to copy the right thing at the right time.
Yeah, excellent play from the Ditto there. Again, it becomes more valuable when the power creep changes in a VGC format, especially when you introduce restricteds. The overall balance and like distribution of stats needs to be higher on your team. So Ditto just comes in usually copying a more valuable Pokemon. The reason that it's a little bit more difficult in formats like this to use Pokemon like that is you could be copying a support Pokemon. There's stuff like Amoonguss or you know, very defensive Tapu Finis or Incineroars and the like. So you know, again, it's a risky thing to bring, but if you know what you're doing, you know, the tools are going to be very effective. So you know, well played from Marco, one of Italy's finest, and again, one of my favorite players to watch, especially since 2020 has given them the chance to shine. And I'm excited to see how they do in the rest of the tournament.
Me too. I think that everybody is putting on such a fantastic show. We want to thank everybody that has been watching the broadcast so far. And also want to thank our sponsors, G Fuel, for making sure that we've got a tournament prize payout of $1,000 to give away to our top 8 players. I'm really excited about that fact that we get a chance to do that partnership with G Fuel. If you use ! G Fuel, you can check out all of the amazing products that they have available. But remember, most of them are caffeinated, so make sure that you know that ahead of time before you go take a look. But we are going to take a quick break, and we're also going to be taking a short offline minute break on the stream so that we can set up a delay for the rest of the stream. So if you see us go offline, please stick around. You don't want to miss what's coming up next because we've got 2 top 8 matches coming up after this short break.